This happened sometime in the late 1980s or early 1990s when I was about 6 or 7 years old. That night, I was home with my older sister, who was around 14 or 15. We lived in a small town in Texas where everyone knew everyone else, and it wasn't unusual for our parents to leave her in charge of me. Despite the age gap, we were close and usually got along well. It was winter, around 8 in the evening, and already pitch dark outside. People don't expect deserts to be cold, but they absolutely are. We were sitting together in the main living area because that's where the television was. Some long-form crime news program was on, one of those hour-long investigative shows that dive deep into real-life horrors like kidnappings, murders, and missing persons. The episode we were watching focused on a quiet neighbor who suddenly snapped, brutally attacked a family next door, and abducted their young daughter. It was the kind of story that makes your skin crawl even in broad daylight. Our living room had one feature that always made me uneasy at night. The entire back wall was made up of tall windows with a sliding glass door leading to the backyard. If the outside lights weren't on, and they weren't, it was just a solid wall of darkness staring back at you. The front door was on the opposite side of the room. It was a heavy wooden door with a glass storm door on the outside. About 3/4 of the way through the show, right as they were discussing the active search for the suspect, the front door suddenly exploded with noise, 3 or 4 violent bangs in rapid succession. We both shot straight up, screaming uncontrollably. Then everything went silent. The house was dim. Only the kitchen light down the hallway and the glow of the TV lit the room. After a few moments of sheer panic, we tried to rationalize it. We told ourselves the wind must have blown something, maybe the rocking chair or a planter, into the door. Strong winds were normal where we lived. We clung to each other, hearts racing, waiting. Nothing happened for a minute or two, and the adrenaline slowly began to fade. Just as we were about to convince ourselves it was nothing, we heard the unmistakable sound of the storm door closing. That meant someone had opened it. Fear hit us all over again. We were frozen on the floor where we'd been watching TV. My sister slowly crawled forward and turned the television off. The old set made a dull, mechanical thunk as the dial clicked into place, and suddenly the room felt even quieter and smaller. Time seemed to stretch. I don't know how long we sat there, barely breathing, staring at the front door. Then I turned my head toward the back of the room, toward the wall of windows. That's when we heard it. The handle on the back door began to turn. It was locked, but only at the knob. The door rattled gently at first, as if someone was testing it, trying not to make noise. Neither of us moved. Neither of us made a sound. Then the door was yanked violently. Over and over again, someone tried to force it open. The glass shook so hard the entire wall vibrated. With every pull, I could see my reflection in the window blur and snap back into focus. That's when my sister completely lost it. She screamed at the top of her lungs. I couldn't move. I was stuck to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. She grabbed me, hauled me down the hallway into her bedroom, slammed the door shut, and piled anything she could find against it, including her mattress. Somehow, she remembered to grab the cordless phone, one of those heavy old ones with the long metal antenna. We had to dial the sheriff directly back then, but in her panic, she couldn't remember the number. She hit redial instead. It rang one of her friends. Between sobs and gasps for air, she told them someone was trying to break into our house and begged them to come immediately. I was curled up on the floor, teeth chattering, unable to stop shaking. We didn't hear anything else after that. A few minutes later, headlights washed over the windows as her friend and their parents pulled into the driveway. Whoever had been there was gone. No one was ever found. There were no broken doors, no fingerprints, only a couple of scuff marks near the bottom of the back door that we couldn't say for sure hadn't already been there. Nothing like that ever happened again. But after that night, neither of us ever forgot to lock a door. I'm a woman, and at the time I was living in a large, aging house with 5 guys who were all in the Navy. My bedroom wasn't even inside the main house. It was set up in a converted, detached garage, completely separate from everyone else. Most nights that didn't bother me. One night, while I was asleep out there, I started hearing a harsh, clattering sound. At first, it blended into my dream like background noise your brain invents. As I slowly came to consciousness, the sound didn't fade. It got clearer. I opened my eyes, still groggy, and listened. The noise was coming from my door. The doorknob was shaking violently, only a few feet from the end of my bed. It sounded like someone was grabbing it and yanking it over and over again. I couldn't tell if they were pounding on it or desperately trying to twist it open. That's when it hit me. I was fully awake. Even my dog, a Labrador who normally slept through everything, was sitting upright, staring straight at the door. I suddenly remembered that I often forgot to lock it. We lived in what felt like a calm, safe neighborhood. But for some reason, about a week earlier, I'd started using the deadbolt every night. That deadbolt was the only thing between me and whoever was outside. The handle kept rattling. I could see light from the motion sensor outside glowing faintly through the top of my closet window. All the blinds were closed. My chest felt tight. My eyes burned with tears, and every brave thought I'd ever imagined having in a situation like this completely vanished. I did the only thing my terrified brain could think of. I pulled the blanket over my head and waited. I had nothing to defend myself with. No weapon, no heavy object, just a metal flashlight clutched in my hands. I lay curled up, barely breathing, listening as the door continued to shake. Then suddenly it stopped. Took me a moment to realize I could move again. My closet had a strange setup, a built-in bench with a small window above it. I crawled inside, climbed up, and peeked out. A few seconds later, the motion light outside clicked off. Whatever had been there was gone. I scrambled back to my bed and forced myself to think logically. I lived with 5 guys. They went out drinking downtown all the time and often came home late with friends. I checked the time, 2:30 a.m., right around when the bars closed. Maybe someone was drunk and confused. Maybe it was nothing. Trying not to panic, I texted all of my roommates. "Hey, are any of you awake? Do you have people over? Someone was just outside my door trying to get in. Probably someone drunk or something. Kinda creepy though." Less than 2 minutes later, the back door of the main house flew open. I heard shouting, whistling, and heavy footsteps. When I looked outside, my roommates were running around the yard holding baseball bats. One of them was a light sleeper and had woken another guy up immediately. I didn't hesitate. I opened my door, grabbed my dog, and ran into the house. I didn't sleep at all that night. For hours, my roommates took turns watching the windows and checking the property. We never saw anyone, but they did find a pack of cigarettes and a fast food bag lying in the backyard. Most likely, it was someone trying to break in. With 6 cars in the driveway, they probably assumed the house was full and decided to try the garage instead, thinking it was empty and safer. But in that moment, lying alone in the dark, my mind had gone somewhere much worse. I genuinely believed I was the last person alive in that house. It wasn't the most terrifying story anyone's ever told, but it scared me enough that I didn't sleep in that room again for weeks. My mother-in-law was one of those people everyone instantly liked. Sharp sense of humor, warm, and incredibly close to my wife. Unfortunately, she passed away not long after our son was born. He was only about 4 months old when she died. A few years later, we were living in an old craftsman-style house built in the 1930s in Pasadena. By then, our son was around 3. One evening, I was bathing him when he suddenly stopped playing with his toys and stared past me. Not at the wall, not at the ceiling, at something very specific over my shoulder. After a moment, he casually asked why Grandma called Mommy a strange name. I froze. At first, I assumed he meant my own mother and asked him what he was talking about. He repeated the question using a nickname, one that only my wife's mother had ever used for her. It was deeply personal, something from her childhood. My wife and I never used it. No one else did. I asked him where he'd heard that name. He answered simply, "The farmer told me." That raised more questions than it answered. I asked who the farmer was, and he shrugged, saying it was his friend. Later, I told my wife what had happened. She broke down immediately, not in fear, but emotion. There was no logical way our son could have known that nickname. We tried to explain it away, but it lingered with us. The following weekend, my wife was working and I was home with our son. While he was in his room, I heard him talking, like he was in the middle of a conversation. Short responses, laughter, pauses, as if someone else were speaking. I went in and asked what he was doing. "Playing," he said. I asked who he was playing with. "The farmer." At that point, my stomach dropped. I asked where this farmer was. He replied, "He left when you came in." That was enough to seriously unsettle me. When my wife got home, I told her everything. We agreed it was strange, but kids have vivid imaginations. We decided to keep an eye on it. A few nights later, we were both woken up by our son talking in his room. We listened quietly and heard him say very clearly, "Grandma says you and I can't be friends anymore." We immediately went to his room. He was sitting upright in bed, calm. I asked if he was okay. He nodded and said, "Grandma says I can't play with the farmer anymore." After that night, the farmer was never mentioned again. Not once. Our son is 13 now. He has no memory of any of this. But my wife and I remember every word. When I was a kid, somewhere between 8 and 11, my older sister used to watch me whenever our parents went out. She was about 7 years older than me. Back then, she smoked constantly, but our parents were strict about it, so she had to go outside every time. She usually stood in the carport, which opened directly toward the street. I'd follow her out, mess around, bug her, and kill time while she smoked. One evening, she noticed something strange. At the far end of our driveway, a white SUV was stopped in the road. It wasn't parked, just sitting there. The windows were so darkly tinted that you couldn't see anything inside. Not even a silhouette. There was a bike rack mounted on top, which made it stand out. It stayed there until my sister went back inside. A little later, When she stepped out again for another cigarette, the SUV returned, this time pulling farther down the road and stopping in a nearby church parking lot. It just waited. Every time she went back outside, the same thing happened. If she went in, it left. If she came out, it came back. It was unsettling, but my sister brushed it off. She was confident and didn't want to overreact. The next day, it happened again. Our parents were gone, and the SUV returned to the exact same spot. If I stayed inside, I could see it through the front window, motionless, facing the house. When my sister stood outside, it remained there, unmoving, watching. She eventually told our dad, who worked as a sheriff's deputy at the time. He contacted local police and reported it. Officers came by, checked the area, but the SUV was nowhere to be found. Then it disappeared. Months passed with no sign of it. Just when we'd almost forgotten, it came back, about 9 months after the first time and several months since the last sighting. From then on, it became a regular presence again. One afternoon, my sister was outside smoking when it appeared once more. Our parents weren't home. Something in her finally snapped. She told me to stay where I was and said she was going to confront whoever was inside. She started walking down the driveway toward the vehicle. Halfway there, she stopped. Later, she told us that an overwhelming sense of terror hit her, like an instinct screaming that if she took another step, she wouldn't come back. She turned around immediately and went back inside without saying a word. The final incident happened on a night when our parents were home. The family car was in the shop, so we'd been stuck at the house all evening. My sister stepped outside to smoke, and I followed her as usual. The SUV showed up again. This time, she told me to run inside and get our dad. I sprinted in and told him what was happening. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his gun and walked quickly down the driveway toward the vehicle, holding it at his side. Not aimed, just visible. The SUV took off instantly. It sped down the road and disappeared onto the nearby highway. My dad, trained to notice details, clocked the make, model, and everything unusual about it. The most disturbing part? The license plate had been completely covered with duct tape. We never saw that SUV again. My sister barely talks about it now, as if it was just a strange memory, but I still think about how close that situation might have come to something much worse. One afternoon, I was down in the basement doing laundry when one of the lights suddenly went out. The basement was divided into 2 sections, the laundry area and the rest of the basement, separated by a wall and a door. To get back upstairs, you had to leave the laundry room and cross through the other side. Unfortunately, the bulb that died was the only light in that second section. I finished up what I was doing, already uneasy about having to walk through the darkness. When I opened the door and stepped out of the laundry room, the basement beyond it was almost completely black. I made it about halfway across when I heard something behind me. It was laughter. Not normal laughter, something harsh and jagged. The kind of exaggerated cackle people use when pretending to be a witch. But this one sounded older, deeper, like the voice of someone who'd spent decades chain-smoking. Rough, raspy, and unmistakably close. Came from directly behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't pause. I ran. I sprinted for the stairs and didn't stop until I was back upstairs, heart pounding. When my father got home later, I asked him to replace the burned-out bulb. I stayed far away while he did. I've never heard that sound again. And I've never told anyone in that house what I heard in the dark. About 2 years ago, I went through a breakup that turned far uglier than I ever expected. There were arguments, tears, and a lot of things said that couldn't be taken back. Over time, I began to realize that my ex was dealing with serious emotional issues and wasn't the person I thought I'd known. There was constant anger, manipulation, and lie after lie that slowly came to light. What made it even stranger was that she was the one who ended the relationship, repeatedly. Yet when I finally accepted it and told her it was time to move on for good, she reacted with intense rage. Not long after that, I started seeing someone new. It was healthy, calm, and honest, and that seemed to infuriate her even more. One day, she came over to pick up a few things she'd left behind. Instead of grabbing them and leaving, she sat me down on the bed and handed me a piece of paper. She demanded that I read it aloud. I glanced at it and immediately didn't want to. It was a vicious, hateful message, accusing me of being incapable of love, calling me worthless, and saying I deserved to die. I refused at first, but she began yelling, completely unhinged. Wanting the situation to end, I finally read it out loud. When I finished, she reached into her purse and pulled out a handgun. It was loaded. For the next 15 minutes, she held it while talking about how she understood the consequences. She said she knew she'd be arrested, knew which prison she'd go to, and didn't care as long as I was gone. I sat there, terrified, trying to keep my voice steady while tears ran down my face. I kept telling her she wasn't a murderer, that she didn't want to destroy her life, that she needed to walk away and live without me in it. Somehow, unbelievably, the moment passed. She put the gun away. We hugged. She left. I later found out that a couple of months ago, she got engaged to someone else. When I was a kid, nothing filled me with dread quite like carrying my dirty clothes down to the basement so my mom could wash them. That part of the house was unfinished, bare walls, shadows everywhere, and it terrified me. I had constant nightmares about it. Not normal bad dreams, but vivid, repeating ones where I somehow knew I was dreaming and still couldn't escape. One nightmare came back again and again. I'd be alone in the house, wandering from room to room, when I'd suddenly feel it, the moment approaching. I never knew what time it was, but I felt it deep in my chest, like an internal alarm warning me that something horrible was about to happen. I'd crawl under the kitchen table because the basement door was right there. Then the door would open. I'd see the legs of a man step into the kitchen. I never saw his face. I didn't know who or what he was. I only knew that if he found me, something unspeakable would happen. The worst part wasn't even the danger. It was the certainty that he knew exactly where I was hiding and was savoring my fear, enjoying the sound of me holding my breath under the table. In other dreams, I'd be walking down the basement stairs. I always knew what was coming. I knew that when my foot left the last step, the light would vanish, and something would grab me. And no matter how badly I wanted to stop, my legs would keep moving. The terror of knowing what was about to happen and being powerless to stop it was overwhelming. Every nightmare led back to the basement. I hated that place. One afternoon, I had to bring my laundry down while I was home alone, except for my dog. I decided it would be less scary if she came with me. I gathered my clothes, called her over, and headed downstairs. It was daytime. Sunlight streamed through the narrow basement windows. Everything looked normal, calm. I walked over, tossed my clothes onto the pile by the washing machine, and turned to head back up. Even on good days, I never walked up those stairs, I ran. I was small, light on my feet, barely making a sound as I climbed. Then I heard it. Heavy pounding, scrambling footsteps, right behind me, charging up the stairs. My mind completely shut down. I screamed, my heart hammering so hard it hurt. My legs gave out and I collapsed onto the steps, curling into a ball. After years of being told monsters weren't real, this felt like the moment my worst fear had finally caught up with me. I squeezed my eyes shut and waited for it to end. Then I felt something warm on my face. My dog, tail wagging, tongue out, was licking me happily. She thought we were racing. I've had strange, unexplained experiences scattered throughout my life, but most of them were mild enough to ignore. There's only one that truly stayed with me, one that still affects me years later. About 4 years ago, I was finishing my freshman year of college. I lived in the dorms with a great roommate, and overall the year had been a good one. Toward the end of the semester, though, something felt wrong. Our hall was still loud and social, but the moment you stepped inside, there was this crushing sense of unease. Everyone blamed final stress, but it felt deeper than that, like the building itself was off. One night, after hours of studying, I decided to take a shower before bed. To explain why this next part matters, you need to understand the layout. Each floor was divided into multiple halls, and each hall had 4 rooms, 2 students per room, except for the RA's room. The entrance to each hall was a massive steel door with a narrow window. Directly across from it sat the shared bathroom. The whole setup felt less like student housing and more like a prison corridor. Inside the bathroom, there were sinks immediately on both sides. 2 on the left, 2 on the right, with huge mirrors facing each other, creating that endless reflection effect. Past the sinks, the left side held urinals and a stall, while the right side had 2 shower stalls. Depending on which sink you stood at, you could see the showers reflected clearly in the mirrors if the stall doors were open. The bathroom door was just as heavy and industrial as the hall entrance and was usually propped open by a large wooden wedge that took real effort to move. That night, I was completely alone in the bathroom. I set my clean clothes on the right-hand sink so I could grab them easily after showering. As I did, I glanced up into the mirror and noticed something strange. In the reflection, deep inside the mirror's repeating layers, there was something shimmering near the shower area. At first, I thought it was my eyes playing tricks on me, but as I watched, it began moving closer, jumping from one reflected layer to the next. Slowly, deliberately, I told myself I was exhausted. I'd been running on caffeine, energy drinks, and medication for days. Still, the movement sped up, and as it drew nearer, I could make out a shape. Not clear, not human exactly, just a dark mass that looked like it was draped in hair. By then, I was terrified. I couldn't move, couldn't look away. When it reached what felt like the 4th reflection layer, I saw it clearly, and I wish I hadn't. What I thought was hair was more like a long, flowing veil. Parts of it were semi-transparent, but below the torso it was solid black, like a void. The face was unmistakably human, yet completely wrong. The eyes were black, empty, but glowing at the same time. I saw it for maybe a second. Then the lights went out. The bathroom went pitch black. I heard the heavy door slam shut. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't move. And then the smell hit me. Thick, metallic, unmistakable. blood. That's where my memory stops. I woke up later in a hospital bed. My RA told me he'd gone to use the bathroom sometime after and found me collapsed inside a shower stall. My shirt soaked from a severe nosebleed. He said I was panicking, repeating only one sentence over and over. It saw me. An ambulance was called. I had to be sedated because I wouldn't calm down. When I came to, my parents were there, terrified. Doctors initially suspected a seizure, but scans showed no signs of one. There was no history of epilepsy in my family, and I'd taken the same medication many times before, and since, without ever experiencing hallucinations or seizures. No explanation ever fit. To this day, I can't look into a mirror for more than a few seconds. Being trapped in a room with one for too long causes me to shut down completely. I've been in therapy for years. I've spoken to religious leaders, doctors, counselors. None of them recognize what I experienced as anything specific. Certainly nothing demonic, as they put it. What haunts me most is this. Before that night, there were no reports of anything strange in that dorm. After I left, there were none either. It was just that one night, just that one moment, just me. About 10 years ago, when I was 19, I was close friends with a girl who shared my fascination with paranormal things. She bought a spirit board style game called Psychic Circle. It came with symbols, words, images, and a guidebook explaining how to use it properly. Despite multiple attempts, we never managed to get anything meaningful from it. One night, she brought the board to her aunt's house. According to her, that evening turned intense very quickly, far more than anything we'd experienced before. Her aunt asked if she could keep the board for a few days to experiment with it on her own. My friend agreed, and we planned to visit that weekend to try it together. That Friday night, we drove over, hoping for something interesting to happen. The moment I got into the car, I felt wrong about it. I wasn't easily scared, especially not by paranormal stuff. I'd had a few strange experiences before, but this was different. It wasn't fear exactly, more like a deep, heavy sense of warning that I couldn't explain. When we arrived at her aunt's house, the feeling only intensified. Her aunt seemed to take an instant dislike to me, even though we'd never met. The tension was thick enough to notice. I tried to brush it off as nerves and made an effort to be polite. Then her aunt brought out the board. It looked nothing like it had before. What had once been colorful now looked aged and worn, as if it had been left out in harsh sunlight for years. The surface looked warped and dull. My friend immediately asked what had happened to it. Her aunt answered calmly, "It's been sweating." That didn't help my nerves. She placed the board on the table and kept watching me closely, like she didn't trust me. By now I was shaking. My hands felt cold and clammy, and my chest was tight. I placed my hands on the planchette without thinking. Her aunt snapped, "No." I pulled my hands away immediately. She stared at me and said, "They don't like you. They don't want to answer your questions." I can tell. That was it. We left shortly afterward. My friend was shaken and upset. She told me her aunt had never behaved like that before. Not cold, not hostile, not anything close. When my friend asked for the board back later, her aunt refused. Eventually, I bought my own board, but nothing ever came of it. No movement, no responses. After a while, I took it as a sign and gave it away. Whatever happened in that house, I was apparently never meant to be part of it. I was about 15 at the time. It was around 3 in the morning, and I was asleep in my basement bedroom. I woke up to a strange sound, someone groaning in pain somewhere in the room outside mine. At first, I assumed I was half dreaming. The basement had a couch just outside my room, and I figured my brain was filling in noise that wasn't really there. But the sound didn't stop. After a few minutes, I sat up and leaned forward. From where my bed was, I couldn't see the couch directly, but I could see legs. Shoes. I recognized the shoes immediately. They looked like the ones a friend had been wearing earlier that night. Then I leaned a little farther. It wasn't my friend. The man on the couch was someone I'd never seen before. Different build, different face, different skin tone. My brain stalled for a few seconds as it tried to make sense of what I was seeing. My first instinct was violent panic. I had a small knife on my nightstand, and for a brief moment I thought about attacking him. He hadn't noticed me yet, and the room layout was strange enough that I might have had a chance. Then I remembered something important. My bedroom door locked from the outside. I moved. The man heard me immediately. He jumped up and charged toward my room. I ran, slammed the door, and managed to lock it just in time, trapping him inside my bedroom. I bolted upstairs, sprinting through 2 floors to my parents' room, shouting that there was someone in the house. They were half asleep and confused, convinced I'd had a nightmare. They followed me downstairs anyway. As we approached my basement room, something heavy smashed into the door from the inside. Part of a 10-pound weight punched straight through it. That's when they realized this was real. My mom grabbed the phone and called the police. My dad moved me farther back into the house. In a moment that still feels surreal, he pulled a sword from a mostly decorative suit of armor in our living room and told me to grab another blade we kept nearby. It sounds ridiculous now, but at the time it was pure adrenaline and fear. A few minutes later, the police arrived. They forced the door open and arrested the man inside my room. He was completely out of his mind, high on PCP. The officers later told us he'd entered the house by diving through a basement window. I never heard the glass break because I'd taken sleep medication that night. Because I'd locked him in the room, they technically classified it as a citizen's arrest. Months later, I was diagnosed with PTSD. The flashbacks and hallucinations are relentless. But the hardest part isn't the fear. It's the embarrassment, the quiet judgment, that unspoken question people seem to ask. That gave you PTSD? But it did, and it still does.